realizes that form is unincluded in the world of sense desire, the world of form and the formless world, and so are feelings too. Condition co-production. And so also the perfection of wisdom and the other perfections, and so suchness, dharmahood, the element of dharma, the reality limit of the unthinkable element, and so are tathagatas, morality, concentration, wisdom, emancipation, vision and cognition of emancipation, his knowledge of all modes, his state of beings always mindful, and his always dwelling in even-mindedness. But that is unincluded in the triple world, so is also the turning over, and the dharmas which and into which one turns over, and he who turns over, and also the Buddhas and Lords and their wholesome roots, and also the disciples and pratyekabuddhas and their wholesome roots. But what is unincluded, that is not past, future, or present. If, however, the bodhisattva who courses in perfect wisdom perceives that form, too, the tathagata's state of always dwelling in mindfulness are unincluded in the triple world, and that which is unincluded is not past, future, or present, he must remain aware that it is not possible to turn over these dharmas by way of a sign or a basis. And why? Because a dharma's own being does not exist, and that of which an own being does not exist is non-existence. But it is impossible to turn over non-existence by way of non-existence. It is thus that a bodhisattva's turning over becomes non-poisonous. If, however, a follower of the great vehicle turns over these wholesome roots by way of a sign and a basis, then he turns them over wrongly. But the Buddhas and Lords do not praise the wrong turning over as the right turning over. Such a one does not turn over with the turning over which the Buddhas and Lords praise. He does not turn over in the perfection of giving, too, in the perfection of wisdom. He thus will not fulfill the 6 perfections, too, the buddhadharmas. He will not fulfill the concentrations or the dharani-doors. He will not purify the Buddha field or mature beings. But if he does not purify the Buddha field or mature beings, then he will not fully know the supreme enlightenment. And why? Because his turning over is spoiled by poison. Moreover, the bodhisattva who courses in the perfection of wisdom should thus consider, as the Buddhas and Lords cognize it, throught, that dharmahood, should that wholesome root be turned over, then it will actually and successfully be turned over. In this way I turn it over through this dharmahood to the supreme enlightenment. The turning over is giving rise to great merit, which is weak. The Lord. Well said. Subhuti. Well said. You who explain the mass of turning over to the bodhisattvas, the great beings, by way of the signless and baseless, by way of non-production and non-manifestation, by way of non-defilement and non-purification, by way of non-existence and of the emptiness of own marks, by the way of the dharma element, of suchness, of non-falseness, of unaltered suchness. If all the beings in the great trichliacosm were to become recipients of the 10 ways of wholesome action, of the 4 trances too, of the 5 superknowledges, would they on the strength of that beget much merit? Subhuti. They would, O Lord. The Lord. A merit greater than this would that son or daughter of good family beget who would turn over the wholesome roots by a turning over which is without any stain. For such a turning over on the part of that son or daughter of good family is proclaimed the most excellent of all. The turning over is giving rise to great merit, which is medium. Moreover, Subhuti, if all the beings in the great trichliacosm were to become stream winners too, arhats, and if someone would during his entire life honor, revere, and worship them, with robes, would he on the strength of that beget much merit? Subhuti. He would, O Lord. The Lord. Greater than his would be the merit of someone who would turn over the wholesome roots by a turning over which is without stain. Moreover, Subhuti, if all beings in the great trichliacosm were to become pratyekabuddhas, and if someone would during his entire life honor, revere, and worship them, with robes, would he on the strength of that beget much merit? Subhuti. He would, O Lord. The Lord. Greater than his would be the merit of someone who would turn over wholesome roots by a turning over which is without stain. The turning over is giving rise to great merit, which is strong. Moreover, Subhuti, if all beings in this great trikalia cosm would set out for the supreme enlightenment, and if in all the 10 directions all the beings in the countless world systems would for countless eons honor, revere, and worship one single bodhisattva with robes, and furnish him with all he might need, would those sons and daughters of good family on the strength of that beget a great deal of merit. Subhuti. A great deal indeed, O Lord. That merit would in fact be infinite. It would not be easy to find a comparison for this foundation of meritorious work. If that foundation of meritorious work were a material thing, it would not find room even in all the world systems countless like the sands of the Ganges. The Lord. Well said, Subhuti, well spoken was that which you have just said. Greater than that would be the merit of someone who would thus turn over wholesome roots into the supreme enlightenment by a turning over which is without stain. Such a turning over of wholesome roots is proclaimed as the most excellent of all. The mass of merit previously mentioned will be infinitesimal compared with the mass of merit due to the turning over which is without stain. And why? Because those who were endowed with the 10 ways of wholesome action, the 4 trances too, the 5 superknowledges, were also perceivers of a basis. And so were those who honored, revered, and worshipped, with robes, all those beings who had become stream winners too, arhats and pratyekabuddhas, and furnished them with all they might need. For this was only a matter of honoring, revering, and worshipping bodhisattvas who are based on something. Thereupon the 4 great kings and 20,000 gods belonging to their host paid homage to the Lord with folded hands and said, "A great transformation surely, O Lord, is this turning over by which the bodhisattva, the great being, with his skill in means, in a manner which takes nothing as a basis, which is without stain, which is without a sign, turns over those wholesome roots into the utmost right and perfect enlightenment, and turns them over in such a way that he approaches neither duality nor non-duality." Thereupon Sakra, chief of gods, together with 100,000 gods of the 33, worshipped the Lord with heavenly flowers, incense, lamps, perfumes, wreaths, ointments, aromatic powders, garments, parasols, banners, and with music from heavenly musical instruments and cymbals. And they spoke as follows: a great transformation, non-duality. Further again, a Siyama god, a Samtushita, a Nirmanarati, a Paramurmata Vasavatan god, together with many hundreds of thousands of deities, said to the Lord, "A great transformation, non-duality." Thereupon many hundreds of thousands of kotis of Niyatas of the Brahma Parshadi gods came to where the Lord was, saluted the Lord's feet with their heads, raised their voices, and uttered the following words: "It is wonderful, O Lord, how much a bodhisattva, a great being who has been taken hold of by the perfection of wisdom and by skill in means, surpasses the wholesome roots of those previously mentioned bodhisattvas and sons and daughters of good family who are based on something." And so spoke 17 other classes of gods, up to the highest gods. Thereupon the Lord said to those gods, from the gods belonging to the 4 great kings up to the highest gods, "If, O gods, all the beings in the great trikalia cosm had all set out for full enlightenment, and if they all, by way of taking something as a basis, would, after they had piled him up, and rejoiced at him, turn over into full enlightenment the following wholesome roots, those of the past, future, and present tathagatas, arhats, fully enlightened ones, with their congregations of disciples, and with their pratyekabuddhas, beginning with the first thought of enlightenment, going on until the time when they have fully known the utmost right and perfect enlightenment, going on until they have entered parinirvana in the nirvana element which leaves nothing behind, and up to the establishment of their good dharma, the wholesome root acquired by those buddhas and lords in that interval. and by those disciples, and by those pratyekabuddhas, and by all those being different from them, the wholesome root which has issued from the perfection of giving, to the perfection of wisdom, the mass of morality, the mass of concentration, the mass of wisdom, the mass of emancipation, the mass of the cognition and vision of emancipation, and in addition the other measureless buddhadharmas. And if on the other hand a son or daughter of good family has set out for full enlightenment, and turns the above wholesome roots over into full enlightenment, after he has piled them all up, heaped them up, weighed them all up, and has rejoiced over them with the most excellent rejoicing, and he turns over in the manner of not taking anything as a basis by way of non-duality, without a sign, without a stain, treating all dharmas as inactive, then that second son or daughter of good family begets much more merit than the previously mentioned sons or daughters of good family, and their wholesome root is incomparably superior to theirs. This turning over of the bodhisattva, which takes nothing as a basis, is the one which is described as the most excellent, too, as something quite unsurpassed. Rejoicing. Subhuti. How is it that a jubilation becomes the most excellent, too? Something quite unsurpassed. The Lord. The jubilation of a bodhisattva becomes the most excellent, too. Something quite unsurpassed when he does not seize upon or release the wholesome dharmas of the tathagatas of the past, future, and present, together with their pratyekabuddhas, and also the wholesome dharmas of all other beings, and if he does not mind them, not despise them, not apprehend them, but if he thinks to himself, htat therein no dharmas is produced or stopped, defiled or purified, and that of those dharmas there is no diminution or growth, no coming or going, no heap and no non-existence. And if he resolves to rejoice in accordance with the suchness, non-falseness, and unaltered suchness of those dharmas, with their dharmic nature, the established order of dharma, and the fixed sequence of dharma, and if after having rejoiced, he turns it over into the supreme enlightenment, all other kinds of rejoicing are infinitely inferior to this one, and by comparison with them this rejoicing is called the most excellent. Moreover, a son or daughter of good family who has newly set out in the vehicle and who wants to rejoice over the wholesome roots of the past, future, and present tathagatas, together with their disciples and the pratyekabuddhas, acquired between the production of the first thought of enlightenment and the period when the Dharma remains established, associated with the perfection of giving, too, associated with the immeasurable buddhadharmas, as well as over the wholesome roots of all other beings, due to giving, morality, and meditational development. He should rejoice as follows. As the resolve, so the gift, the morality, too, the wisdom. As the result, so form, too, consciousness. As the result, so the elements, too, the buddhadharmas. As the result, so the vision and cognition of emancipation. As the result, so the rejoicing. As the result, he past, future, and present buddhadharmas. As the result, so the Buddhas and Lords. As the result, so the full enlightenment of those Buddhas and Lords. As the result, so the disciples and pratyekabuddhas of those Buddhas and Lords. As the result, so the parinirvana of the disciples and pratyekabuddhas. As the result, so the dharmahood of those Buddhas and Lords. As the result, so the dharmahood of those disciples and pratyekabuddhas. As the result, so is the dharmahood of all dharmas and of all beings who are unliberated, devoid of calm, undefiled, and unpurified, the dharmahood of those dharmas which are unborn, unarisen, unproduced, and unstopped. In this way he turns over to the supreme enlightenment, although nothing passes on and nothing is destroyed. This is the most excellent rejoicing of the bodhisattvas. When he is endowed with this rejoicing, the bodhisattva quickly knows full enlightenment. Moreover, subhuti, if some follower of the great vehicle should during the whole of his life honor, revere, and worship, with robes, those Buddhas and Lords, together with their congregations of disciples, who abide in all the 10 directions, in each single direction, in the world systems countless like the sands of the Ganges, and would give them everything that they might need. And if day and night he would put forth zeal to honor, revere, and worship those Buddhas and Lords with flowers. And if, by way of taking something as a basis, he would stand in morality, develop patience, exert vigor, enter into trance and develop wisdom. And if on the other hand someone who has set out for the supreme enlightenment, coursing in the 6 perfections without taking anything as a basis, turns these wholesome roots over into the supreme enlightenment, then compared with his accumulation of merit and his accumulation of wholesome roots, the previously mentioned accumulation of merit is infinitesimally small. This is the turning over which is proclaimed as the most excellent, too, as something quite unsurpassed. It is thus that the bodhisattva, who courses in the 6 perfections, and who has rejoiced over those wholesome roots by way of skill in means and by way of taking nothing as a basis, should turn these wholesome roots over into supreme enlightenment. End chapter 33. Note: followers of the bodhisattva vehicle may get more benefit from listening to the sutras actively by reading along with a peaceful voice, and walking on a treadmill very slowly to avoid drowsiness. Keep this in mind. Wishing or dreaming to do the goodness is the first steps of doing good. It does not matter one can do it or not. It is the same for wishing to become a Buddha. Bodhisattvas are those people who vow to gain enlightenment in order to bring about unchanging happiness for all living beings. And again, it does not matter they can do it or not.